Welcome back to this explainer. Today, we're dissecting the ancient poetry of Psalm 27. And let me tell you, charting its emotional journey will give you almost literal whiplash. We're going to trace a path from absolute, unshakable confidence, plunging straight down into desperate, isolated pleading, and finally landing on a place of resolute, hard-fought hope. It's a masterful piece of literature that captures the whole spectrum of the human experience in just a few short verses. To really grasp the weight of this text, I want you to picture this for just a second. Imagine facing an actual, encamped army, or worse, flesh-eating adversaries actively hunting you down. This intense, visceral, terrifying scenario is exactly where our text begins today. We're not starting with a gentle prayer here, we are dropping right into the middle of a war zone.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, Fearless in the Darkness.
Take a look at the first half of the actual text from the English Standard Version. Just looking at the structure of verses 1 through 6, you can see how it acts as an absolute anthem of fearlessness. It's rhythmically bold. The author, David, isn't cowering. He is standing tall against an overwhelming tide of opposition right from the jump.
Notice how it establishes the ultimate source of illumination and rescue. By immediately declaring, "The Lord is my light and my salvation," he is rendering all human fear completely obsolete. Whom shall I fear? It's the ultimate rhetorical question. The implied answer, of course, is absolutely no one.
The text goes on to declare that the Lord is the stronghold of his life. And if we look closely at the translation footnotes, we see this word can also mean refuge. This emphasizes a heavily defended, impenetrable position. A stronghold isn't just a quiet hiding place. It's a strategic, fortified military advantage that simply cannot be breached.
To fully understand the immense scale of his confidence, we really have to look at the escalating, almost cinematic threats he lists. He starts with evildoers assailing to eat his flesh, which is a terrifying, monstrous image, then moves to adversaries and foes, scales up to a massive army encamped against him, and finally, total raging war. Yet against all of these escalating odds, he claims his enemies will simply stumble and fall. Which brings us to a really fascinating pivot in Section 2, Seeking the Sanctuary.
Despite being completely surrounded by this escalating war, his focus abruptly shifts away from the battlefield. In the face of violent death, his one request isn't for better weapons, or more troops, or even the destruction of his enemies. Nope. His single request is for quiet sanctuary and continuous contemplation. He just wants to dwell in the house of the Lord forever. It's a stunning contrast between external warfare and internal desire. He specifically wants to gaze upon beauty and inquire in the temple. A footnote in the source text reveals that inquire can also be translated as meditate. Think about that. While armies rage outside, he seeks to center his mind on beauty and meditation inside. It's a profound, incredibly powerful lesson in focus and emotional regulation.
But then, the floor kind of drops out. Section 3, a shift to desperation.
Just as we settle into this beautiful, peaceful imagery, verse 7 hits us with a sudden, jarring emotional plunge. The unbreakable confidence vanishes. Look at this visual contrast. The calm meditation of verse 4 completely fractures into the panicked, desperate pleas of verse 9. Cast me not off, forsake me not. It is a 180-degree turn. The invincible warrior is suddenly, genuinely terrified of being abandoned. Moving into the second half of the text, the language transforms entirely. It shifts from bold declarations to urgent pleading cries. He begs, "Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud, and be gracious to me and answer me." The confident exclamation marks are totally replaced by desperate pleas for connection and rescue.
The vulnerability reaches its absolute peak right here in verse 10. He says, "For my father and my mother have forsaken me." I mean, wow. This touches on the most primal human fear of ultimate abandonment, being left behind by the very people who brought you into the world. Even if he's speaking metaphorically, the emotional weight of feeling entirely orphaned by your support system is staggering.
Notice, too, how the nature of the danger has changed. The physical, faceless armies from the beginning of the poem have morphed into insidious, interpersonal threats. He's now facing false witnesses who literally breathe out violence against him. This isn't just a battle of swords anymore, it's a battle of reputation, betrayal, and deep psychological torment.
Let's dig a little deeper into Section 4, Mysteries in the Translation. As we analyze this profound shift, peeking at the margins of the text builds this fascinating layer of mystery regarding his exact state of distress. Check out these key translation variants. Subtle shifts in ancient Hebrew, like replacing stronghold with refuge or inquire with meditate, gently shift the emotional weight of the poem from a physical militaristic defense to an internal spiritual safe space. But here is the most captivating footnote of all. Right in the middle of his desperate plea in verse 8, the translators plainly admit, the meaning of the Hebrew verse is uncertain. His internal dialogue of "Your face, Lord, do I seek" is tangled in ancient syntax we just can't fully decode today. It leaves us with a beautiful 3,000-year-old literary enigma right at the climax of his emotional breakdown.
Finally, we reach section 5, the courage to wait.
After passing through this intense crucible, from unshakable confidence into panic, isolation, and uncertainty, the poem has to land on a grounded resolution. And how he finds his footing is incredibly relatable. He doesn't suddenly pretend the danger is gone. Instead, he actively claws his way back to hope. He expects to see goodness not just in some distant afterlife, but right here, in the land of the living. It is a defiant refusal to let his current darkness dictate his ultimate reality.
And wait until you see this final footnote. It builds the tension even further. Another fascinating translation note reveals that alternate Hebrew manuscripts frame this exact line as a breathtaking exclamation of near despair. It reads, "Oh, had I not believed that I would look?" It's as if he's saying, if I hadn't held on to this belief, I would have been completely destroyed. It highlights just how dangerously close to the edge he truly was.
We conclude with verse 14, his final grounding command. Interestingly, he seems to be speaking to himself just as much as he is to us. It's an explicit exhortation to gather courage and practice steadfast patience. Wait for the Lord. It acknowledges that resolution doesn't always come instantly. Sometimes the absolute bravest thing you can do is simply stand firm and wait.
As we close out this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. We've watched a man transition from fearlessly facing armies to battling the terrifying whispers of false witnesses and the ultimate dread of abandonment. Yet he found a way to anchor himself. So when you face the modern armies encamped in your own life, what gives your heart the courage to hold on?